Welcome to the Sovereign Futures podcast. I am your host, Yvonne de la Flor. The Sovereign Futures podcast is a sharing space of transformational interviews, sacred teachings, power imagery processes, innovative futuring tools, and topics that can help you design and sculpt your desired futures into your now. Some of our podcasts will be translated into Spanish to bridge cultures where we share the journey of consciousness together. Welcome to the Sovereign Futures podcast. I am your host, Yvonne de la Flor, and I'm checking in with you today. We're doing a pre-recorded show with one of my favorite people, literally in the world, and I'm checking in very zen. I have been during 2 weeks in what in the spiritual traditions is called like spiritual isolation. A lot of silence, a lot of alone time, writing my new book, and really in the quiet. I've been, thanks to the support team that I have, they've been on social media more than me, but I have taken like really 2 weeks of deep introspection. And most of this type of introspection has birthed a lot of the changes that this podcast is going to have for 2021. So just wanted to let you know. And so that's one thing. So if you hear me talking like pretty mellow, maybe and passionate in the middle, that's why. The second thing is I want to remind you that our certification training of the system called Futuring, which is a system that is, a lot of my mentors and teachers joke, they call it like the higher self of goal setting. But truly what it is, it's very specific tools to master the use of your subconscious mind and the law that it's been quite used and very used in spiritual niches and traditions, but really is a quantum physics law, which is the law of cause and effect. Many people know it as karma, but it's really for goal setting. We got to be able to project, predict, and plan accordingly to possible, inevitable, probable results, so we can track where we're going and to plan future wise from the future to the now instead of from the past to the now. There's a lot of skills. So I trained with an incredible German teacher on this, and only once a year I do that certification. So that certification, both for facilitators and for trainer of trainers, is open in August 2021. You'll be able to hear this podcast before that happens. And that's the only news I want to say. We are a philanthropic-based podcast. We are not sponsored by anyone yet. Next year, I've been in talks with a couple of people that have been interested, and the podcast is going to evolve. Perhaps it's going to be renamed. We want to do it in a way that serves the people. That serves the purpose of serving. To help people create more results in their areas that they are interested. In my case, I've been devoted for 20 years to spiritual mastery, to attain states of calm, of mastering the use of my central nervous system. Sounds really fancy, but I can really tap into that. And also becoming more productive with less hassle and make zen out of hustle. It's like a hustle and zen kind of vibe. So we are a philanthropic podcast. The podcast is sponsored by one of my companies, the La Flor Teachings, and by the media production company, Ascend Media. So they edit the podcast. They make also sound much better, that when we record, and hopefully also give our incredible guests a space where their message and their mission, their vision, the purpose and message is honored. So that's all my commercials and that you will hear. And now I'm going to introduce you to my incredible guest today. But before I read you what I have written here about Mr. Tab Pierce, I want to pay tribute to him. And it's going to go in my podcast. Over all my years of spiritual practices, I have learned something. And actually, it's not even spiritual practice. I believe it's called a moral code. To be extremely grateful and pay tribute when someone supports you and someone sees in you like a mentor, a teacher, a friend, sees in you and gives you an opportunity. And Tab was the first person. I've been public speaking for a long time, especially in Mexico and in Spanish, but he gave me my first opportunity to have like a what is called a real keynote speaking on a stage. Oh, there was a pandemic. There was not a lot of people. I was extremely nervous and grateful and excited at the same time. But I want to honor that his company, Refiners, and him and his incredible team and wife, they gave me an opportunity to be amongst incredible leaders and teachers. So I always honor whoever, gives me that like it's not even an opportunity. It's so much grace, it's so much grace. And I believe that in the planet right now, this podcast is called Sovereign Futures for a reason. We want to be able to design sovereign futures, like sovereign businesses, sovereign relationships, sovereign spirituality, where we use sovereignty for the purpose of being better humans, of living by example, of living by core values, of getting back into the horse when we fall, of making amends. And one of those core values of mine is paying tribute. So I want to pay tribute to him. And now I'm going to share with you a little bit about credentials and all that stuff that I love to share with you. So then when I pass the microphone to Mr. Tab, I speak less and I listen more, and he can share with you his wisdom. So, just 1 second, because right now I was about to read the bio of another friend of mine. Anyways, after years of fruitful business growth, Mr. Tapp Pierce found that a few poor business decisions would have colossal outcomes that threatened his once strong business and caused him to question his self-worth. Professionally, it was overcoming the massive debt of nearly $750,000. I know this podcast goes to Mexico, so imagine $750,000 in pesos. It's like millions and millions and millions that he owed to 18 different creditors. Personally, it was the new belief he was a fraud, failure, and unworthy. As a result, depression, vulnerability, and fear were constant companions of Tab. In despair and disbelief, he turned to his network of professionals to help him get his business back on track. To his amazement, most of the business advisors and friends gave him the same advice: shut your doors and walk away. Oh, haven't I heard that thousands of times? Anyways, only a select few had the belief he could turn it around, and even fewer dove in to help him. Over a 3-year time span, not only did he fully recover, but his business is successfully running stronger than ever. Today, he uses the lessons learned from his experience to help entrepreneurs and business owners see that there is a path to success and that the pathway is glorious and worthy adventure. He will be able to share with you and teach you in any of the offerings he does how to be strong and powerful in adversity and reach new heights thereafter. And I want to add something. He has one of the most solid, conscious, loving, moral, and playful relationships that I have ever witnessed. So my beloved friend and ally, Tab Pierce, welcome to the Sovereign Futures podcast.
Wow. Thank you very much. Can I just say one thing?
Oh, please, it's your time.
That is 8 minutes. I'm looking, it's 8 minutes that I did not say anything. That is a record. I've never done that in my entire life. So it's killed me just watching that tick by. But thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
I love that. So it's not a record for me. I can go on and on speaking. So welcome, beloved Tab. So, I shared a little bit about you. Again, thank you. Thank you for believing in me, just as like few believed in you and giving me that opportunity. And with that, I want to start speaking about, what I just read, how you went through the challenge, all the things you have created. I don't even know where to start because you are such a productive human and one of the most productive in time management. So wherever you want to start, let's just go in because I know it's going to help people refine them life, whatever we choose to share.
So probably the first thing I would say is it was a moment in time that we discovered that I discovered. I was like I was the last one. I would like to say in the company that realized just how bad things were. It was my accountant at the time who finally got through to me just the depth of despair and debt that we had. I literally went to work one morning feeling like, just normal, just great, and then leaving and just that feeling of being a fraud, a failure. I was vulnerable, uh, just distraught, everything you could imagine. I just it hit me that just how bad things were, and at the moment, I just labeled that as the worst moment in my life, and I don't think I actually went. This is the worst moment of my life, but mentally, I went. This is it. This is. I haven't experienced anything this bad. The interesting thing is now when I hear people talk about that, or when I hear people say that, like you're saying it, I look back and I with fondness, and I think, short of things like, my marriage and my children, and that it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And so I now look at that moment with fondness, not the despair I did originally. And it's just how you go about looking at things, and how you determine immediately that there's no value in the experience. There's no value in the um, what you're going to go through. And when the truth is that your life, your value, everything is just really starting to take hold because you're under this colossal undertaking to achieve something amazing.
Wow, I love, because in a way, you reframe the experience. And there's very few people that are able to do that. You reframe the experience. Something in your spirit chose to refuse to believe that you were done, to refuse to believe that this had to stay being the most terrible time of your life, and you turned it around. So what do you think, what were the first like insights or thought angels? I call them thought angels, right? Or presences. I know your wife is one of them, and your children, you just mentioned them. But what were the first thoughts that had you make the decision to turn everything around and achieve not only the success? I want to make a definition, a different definition of success here. Not only success, but fulfillment. You are one of the most fulfilled humans I've met, and I'm after fulfillment more than just plain success. So, what was it? What was like that trigger moment that really made you decide, I'm going to turn this around?
The the first thing, and I really do hope that I come across as being a fulfilled individual. Partly because I try really hard to do that. The other part is there's really no greater. Well, maybe there are greater goals, but it's one of the major ones, right? To be fulfilled, to love, to appreciate, to feel all of those things. The I There wasn't a moment in time where it was like that was the one thing that caused me to be fulfilled or to believe or anything. It was, or the decision to turn it around. I'm often really careful to tell people, because I get people like, oh, you could have chose to go bankrupt and you didn't, and that's noble. I'm always careful and go, hey, I didn't do this to be noble. I didn't set out to do this because that's what I wanted, to do. That I had this deep conviction. And the fulfillment, when all this came down, I was not fulfilled. I was anything but fulfilled. And I wasn't for a long time. I actually had to let myself get back to that. But what happened is we were $250,000 in debt to the IRS. And the IRS does not forgive debt. And so the greatest opportunity that I had to overcome that debt was to keep my business afloat, run my business, and make